Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Group 4 presenting. Kindly let's acknowledge Dr. Justice Ama, our course tutor, who take us through a course title known as Internet and Web Pedagogies with a course code of EIT 304D, a College of Distance Education, University of Cape Coast. We are going to talk about a topic known as effective online tutorials and assessment. And this topic is going to be presented by these presenters. Anani Frank Womeno is the one you are hearing from. John Dansu is my co-presenter, followed by Simon Tete Jangba, my co-presenter. Ajimandua Prince is nowhere to be found, but I believe his presence is with us as we do this presentation. We are going to look at these subtopics or substrands, which are planning a lesson or learner-centered assessment, integrating online assignment into your course, effective online tutorials, managing student use of technology in the classroom, and above all, e-portfolio, which is electronic portfolio. Now, by the end of this presentation, we are expecting, we believe, and we must agree that the learners, or you, the listeners and the viewers, must be able to at least state 3 points to consider when preparing a lesson plan, able to state 2 key strategies for effective online tutorials, state at least 2 ways of managing student use of technology in the classroom, then state at least 2 online assignment decision criteria. Last but not the least, be able to state at least 2 reasons to help plan assessment. And lastly, 2 best practices for instructors. So all these are the objectives we hope that you, the listener, the learner, or the viewers, will be able to grab when we are done with the presentation. We begin with lesson planning, which I, Anani Frank, will take you through this topic. So sit, relax, and enjoy. Thank you. So welcome back to lesson 1, which is lesson planning. As I said it earlier, I am Anani Frank taking you through lesson planning. Lesson planning, the word planning itself, is forecasting into the future what you want to achieve. Forecasting into the future what you want to achieve. So we are saying that it is an instructor's roadmap of what students need to learn and how it will be done effectively during the class time. So we are saying that it's a guideline, it's a criteria, it's a means by which you want to achieve after a lesson has been delivered or will be delivered. And we are continuing to say that an effective lesson plan can help you develop or design appropriate learning activities and develop strategies to obtain the feedback. If your lesson plan is well, effectively planned or designed, it is easy to get the feedback that you want from the student. So we are saying that a successful lesson plan has 3 key components. 1 is to the objective for the student learning. The objectives for the student learning. 2, teaching or learning activities. The thing that will go on, the activity that the children will partake in it, that will help them. Then the third one is the strategies to check the student understanding. So these three key components can help you to successfully plan your lesson. So when you look at the diagram that I've presented on your screen, we are saying that before the class, what you have to do, during the class, what you must do, then after the class, what you need to do. So we are saying that before the class, identify the learning objectives. And we are saying that you must have a goal and you must have objectives. Objectives are the smaller things you want to achieve. Then the goals are the broader things you want to achieve. So you are breaking the goal into smaller bits known as the objectives. Plan the specific learning activities, assessment, and the sequence of the lesson. How the lesson will go, how it will flow, the activity that will be involved in the lesson delivery. Create a realistic timeline. How many minutes will you use to do this, to do that? You plan it. Then plan for a lesson closure. The lesson closure is very, very paramount. Then during the lesson, share the lesson plan with your students, and this will help them keep them more engaged and on track. Then after the class, reflect on what worked well and why, and what you could have done differently. So these are the strategies you must adopt when planning a lesson effectively. So step for preparing a lesson plan. Identify the learning objectives. You have to identify the learning objectives. So before you plan your lesson, first you need to identify the learning objectives for the lesson. A learning objective describes what the learner will know and be able to do after the learning experience, rather than what the learner will be exposed to. Then we continue to say that it is a written language that is easily understood by students and clearly related to the program learning outcomes. So you have to identify the learning objectives. So we are saying that objectives like what? We are looking at clearly stated tasks, important learning goals, achievable, demonstrable and measurable, fair and equitable, linked to course and program objectives. So all these are objectives that must go in line with what you want to achieve. Then move straight to the next one. Plan the specific learning activities. You have to plan the specific learning activities. How do you do this? When planning learning activities, you should consider the types of the activities students will need to engage in order to develop the skills and the knowledge to demonstrate effective learning in the course. So, learning activities should be directly related to the learning objectives of the course and provide experiences that will enable students to engage in practice and provide all this to gain the feedback on that specific progress. So when you are planning a lesson, you should also be careful about the specific learning activities, and these activities must also be in line with the time bound. How many minutes will I use to do this activity? From there, what next, and the rest. So we are saying that as you plan your learning activities, estimate how much you will spend on each, building a time or build in time for extended explanation. So you have to make sure you build your time in a way that there will be a little bit deficit of time in order to what? Plan your lesson effectively. The next one is plan to assess student understanding. Plan to assess student understanding. Plan to assess student understanding. Before that, let's look at some of the specific learning activities. Yeah, so on your screen you can see interaction with the content, and drills, practices, lecture, quiz, student presentation, game, simulation, debate, discussion, feedback, guest speaker, case study, concept mapping, real world project. Then what? Reflection journal. All these are the activities you can embed in your lesson planning in order to deliver it effectively. So let's go back to the third one. Plan to assess student understanding. If you want to assess student understanding, what are some of the things you must do? One, we are saying that the number and type of assessment tasks that will best enable students to demonstrate their learning. Example of different assessments are, we have what we call the formative and summative. We also have what we call you have to be careful with their rubrics also. So diagnostic, the formative, the summative, these are the assessment strategies you must embed in your lesson delivery. Before you start your lesson, what assessment that goes into it? Whilst you are delivering, what assessment? When you are done with your delivery, what assessment? All this comes together to be able to get the understanding the children have before you close your lesson. The fourth one is plan to sequence the lesson. You plan to sequence the lesson. Plan to sequence the lesson and engage in the meaningful manner. So, according to Robert Gunn, propose a 9-step process called the event of instruction, which is useful for planning the sequence of your lesson. Gunn has the 9 events in conjunction with Bloom's taxonomy. So if you look at the Bloom's taxonomy on your screen, so this is what he proposed. So that's the man on your screen over there, Robert Gunn. He said that 1, you have to gain the attention. 2, inform learner of the objectives. 3, prior learning. 4, present the content. 5, provide guidance. 6, practice it. 7 is provide feedback. 8 is assess the performance. And the 9th one is to enhance the retention and the transfer of the job. So when you are gaining the attention, you need to present a story or problem to solve it. So you have to, that you can grab the children concept. Just give them some gimmicks or some comics so that you can grab their attention. Then you can also give them the icebreakers to also grab their attention to yourself in order to go to the next thing. When you're able to get their attention, we are saying that you have to inform learner of the objectives. How do you do it? You have to include the slides, the syllabus, the instructions, the activity, the project, and the paper that you'll be using. Describe the required performances and the rest. Criteria of standard performance. You describe all these things to the children once you have gained their attention. Then prior learning. Prior learning is saying that what do they know before you are coming to the new content? Relate it. Then present the content. Once you're able to know the prior learning, then present the new learning to them. And you must make sure the new learning has something to do with the prior learning. So present the new content to them so that they'll be okay because they have certain skills or knowledge before they come to learn the new one. And we are saying that when you are presenting the new learning, sequence and chunk the information to avoid cognitive overload. Don't burden them with their thinking. Sequence it. Should move in chronological order. Then blend the information to aid or help them to recall the information. That's what we call what? Presenting knowledge. Then provide guidance. When I'm talking about providing guidance, advise students on strategies to help them in learning content and available resources. Provide instructional support. Model varied learning strategies. Then use examples and non-examples in order to guide them in the learning. Then we're also talking about practice. What is practice here? Allow students to apply knowledge and skills learned. Allow students to apply knowledge in a group or individual activities. Ask deep learning questions. Make references to what students already know and have students collaborate with their peers. Then facilitate students. Make sure you don't dominate. Just facilitate them with a little bit push. Then from there, ask students to elaborate or explain certain things. Then you know how your learning is faring to. Then provide feedback. Here we are saying that provide immediate feedback of student performances to assess and facilitate their learning. when you're able to provide the feedback, it will help the child whether he has done well or not, than rather give them suspense. So it is good to provide them immediate feedback so that they will know their left and right, whether they have done well or not. This helps them to learn or sit up. Then we have what we call consider implementing your feedback or peer feedback. Let the peers, let their own colleagues assess them. Oh, how do you see your friend? Let them also what? Assess their colleague. Then require students to specify how they use feedback in subsequent works. How they use it. Then the next one is assess student performance. Assess performance. So to evaluate the effectiveness of the instructional event, test to see if the expected learning outcomes have been achieved. How do you do this? Enhance retention and transfer. Allow students to apply information to personal life, personal context, personal dwellings. Then this increases their retention. When they're able to relate the teaching to their personal life, it will stay or be there till what they want to use with it. So let them relate the content to their personal life. Provide additional practice. Provide opportunities for students to relate coursework to their personal experiences. This will help them. So when you are doing assessment, you can also use the written assignment, project, you can also do the quizzes and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, you relate it to their personal life, which at the end of the day, it will be there and it will what? Be part and parcel of them. Then we are talking about the next one according to lesson planning. So this is how Gans proposed the 9 steps, so which we have discussed earlier. Then let's look at how the lesson plan looks like. How it looks like. So a sample of it. Good. So this is a sample of a lesson plan. As you can see on the screen, we have a weekly lesson plan for, let's say, basic 7 in a subject as computing, because we are in the IT field. So we have the dates, we have the period, maybe you have 2 periods, which is 60 minutes. We have subject computing, we have the strand introduction to computing, we have substrand, we have components of computer, and this is a level for base 7. Content standard, we have examine the part of a computer. The indicator, we have discussed the 4th generation, and this lesson is going to be taught 6 consecutive times, but this is the first lesson of it. Then performance indicator, learners can discuss at least 3 features of the 4th generation of computers. And we are looking at the competencies, we are looking at creativity and innovation, communication and collaboration, and digital literacy. This is what we are expecting the children to possess or have. And the references are as follows, as has been outlined, and the keywords also are below. So your first lesson, we are saying the starter. So the starter will use 10 minutes for the starter. Some also can use 5 minutes for the starter. So we are saying that when you work in, use questions and answers, find out what learners already know, what the 4th generation computers is to their children, share with the learners, let them have interaction with them. If possible, make it in the form of comic. You can give them also a comic video, which is almost 30 seconds comic on the topic. You can also use your resources such as the set of computers, video, projectors, pictures to demo your intro to the lesson. Then you go to the main lesson delivery. Then let learner discuss features of the 4th generation of computer. So you just go, then you make sure these points are outlined, are well captured, are well grasped by the student. So these are the main key. So in the course of your delivery, you do what you call assessment. Which we call the formative assessment. So you ask them this question whilst you are your lesson is going on. Then when you are done, you summarize your lesson, then you give them assessment, which assessment as learning. So state 2 features of generation of computers, then state the main function of a microprocessor. So this is what you call the summative. We can also classify this as summative assessment because that's at the end of the lesson. Yes, and this one can also be formative assessment because whilst you are delivering your lesson, you are asking questioning them within the period. So then from there, lesson 2 or 6, lesson 2 of 6, you know what you're going to teach. So this is a typical lesson plan of what we are proposing that it should be. So group 4, computing facilitators. Okay, let's move straight to the. Okay, so now let's move straight to during the class. When you are presenting your lesson, provide a meaningful organization of the class time, because this can help students not only remember better but also follow your presentation and understand the rationale behind the planned learning activities. So we are saying that letting your students know what they will be learning and doing in class will help keep them more engaged and on track. You can share your lesson plan by writing a brief agenda on the whiteboard or telling students explicitly what they will be learning and doing the class. But the emphasis here is make sure you provide a meaningful organization of the class time and help students so that they can be able to what? Have a feel of what you are doing. After the class, reflect on your lesson. Take a few minutes after each class to reflect on what worked well and what didn't work well. Identify successful and less successful organizations or arrangements of the class time and activities. This will make it easier to adjust to the contingencies of the classroom. Even this alone will help you plan very well and effectively for your next lesson or day 2. So make sure you have a reflection of your lesson. So at this moment, I will invite my brother John to take you over to this lesson. Thank you very much. I'll come back.
Good evening, everyone. This is Danso John. My center is Accra High School. I am presenting on learner-centered assessment and e-portfolio. So I would like to start with learner-centered assessment. Now, when you talk about assessment all the time, what is it? Now, first, we're going to define what is an assessment and look at the meaning of learner-centered and continue with the rest. Okay, so assessment. When you talk about assessment, what comes into mind? Now, when you say assessment, it's the process of obtaining information that is used for making decisions about students, curricula, programs, and educational policies. So, assessment is mainly for obtaining information that is used for making decisions about the students, educational programs, etc. Now, one importance of assessment is it is used to collect information about student understanding of a concept. So, through assessment, you, the teacher or the facilitator, you get to know the level of understanding of the learner, the strengths and the weaknesses of the learner in order to take decisions that will help the learner overcome the weaknesses. So when you talk about learner-centered, here the learner is placed at the center of the assessment. Learner-centered assessment is an integral part of your course design. Carefully plan assessment and ensure that the time your students spend on assessment is meaningful in terms of enhancing their learning or providing them with an opportunity to receive feedback. And the time you spend reviewing and responding to the assessment provide you with a meaningful measure of their learning. So the time the students learn on assessment help them, or it helps the teacher to get feedback from them. Now let's look at the 5 steps to develop an assessment plan. So whenever you want to develop an assessment plan, there is 5 key steps you must follow in order to come out successfully with the assessment plan. So now the first one we have here is consider what you want your learners to learn and tell them. What do you want your learners to achieve at the end of the lesson? So the learning objectives, your goals, you let the students or the learners be aware of the learning outcome. That at the end of the lesson, I want you to be able to create, let's say, a folder You should be able to move and transfer file from one place to another on the computer. So you have to tell what you want your learners to learn. Second, select assignment and test that measure what you value most. So here, your assignment and test must be tailored to what you value most. Which aspects do you want to assess? Is it knowledge? Is it understanding? So your assignment should align to what you value most. Now, third one here is construct assessment skeleton. So here, after considering what you value most, what you want the learners to learn at the end of the lesson, so you draw a plan or you draft a plan to achieve all these goals. So this is where you construct the assessment skeleton in order to set the learning goals. Fourth point, collaborate with your students to set achieve goals. So here you don't just leave the learners alone. You, the teacher, you come together with your learners to set and achieve all goals you want to attain at the end of the lesson. Now the final point here is make assignment and test instructions clear to students. So the rubrics or the instructions of the test must be clear to students. There shouldn't be any ambiguity. Everything should be clear. When students read, they should be able to understand, to get rid of any invalidity of a test. So everything must be clear to the learners to avoid or to enhance validity and reliability of the test. So this brings me to the end of the first presentation. The next topic I'm going to present on is e-portfolio. E-portfolio.
My name is Simon Tete Jangba, presenting on online assignments and key strategies for effective tutorials. Now, let's look at online assignment. Online assignment allows for an achieve to be created of a relevant course information and discussion. This information can be used by students at a later date whilst studying for a test exams or by the instructor to create a frequently asked questions or measure student understanding of a key concept. Now let's look at some possible online assignment platforms. Online assignment platforms. We have the online discussion, the case studies, online tests, quizzes, practical exercise, virtual tutorials or labs. These are online assignment platforms that we can use. Let's move on to reasons for putting assignment online. Reason for putting assignment online. Reasons for putting assignment online. Reason for putting assignment online. It is good to have assignment online because if you are doing ICT, even not even ICT, now how the system is moving and how things are going about in education, we need to have online assignment so that you can do your findings, get information, add up, then you also send it back. It makes learning easier and faster, and it gives you the chance to do more research. So let's look at some of the reasons for putting assignment online. 1. Allow for a new types of assignments. Again, 2. Refocus classroom time. Sometimes you cannot use all the time like one-on-one, in-person. Look at online assignment decision criteria. Now you have the types of issue focusing questions. Now let's look at the goal and objectives, because when you want to give assignment online, there's a criteria you follow or decision you have to make. The type of issue, the goal and objectives. That is the goal or objectives. What do I most want students to learn from this assignment? What am I expecting? What do I want them to learn from this assignment? Then we come to the contextual. Who are my students? As a teacher, you have to know your students you are teaching in the classrooms, in person, wherever you find yourself as a teacher. You need to know the kind of student you are teaching. Do they know how to use the technology? Do they even have access to computer? I remember when we began this course, when the course started, people were of how to get laptop to go online or to be able to study, because some of the courses, whilst you are doing the online, you have to be doing the practicals in addition. Thinking when you have the phone alone, you can be listening to your lecture on it. Not all, but others. Once you are even on the lecture, then you should have a laptop, doing the practicals and giving feedback. And all this is good, and it helps us to develop our IT skills. Now we are going to look at the content. What about the assignment content or goal? What is the content of what? My assignment. We come to teaching method. How do I need to teach? It's very important. Teaching goes with teaching method because of individual understanding. So when you are teaching and you lack teaching methods, and your teaching is one way, you realize that students will not fully participate in it. So you look at teaching methods, then assessment. Why would I use an online assessment assignment?
Thank you, my learned colleague Simon. I'm going to talk about effective online tutorials. Effective online tutorials. I know most of you have experienced this before, and you have even done some before. But the question here is, what is an online tutorial? We are saying online tutorial is a self-study activity designed to teach a specific learning outcome. They are usually derived or delivered via or through the blackboard, but can also be made available through the internet or on a portable storage media like DVD or the CD. And we are saying that there are two main types of online tutorials, which we refer to as recorded version and the interactive version. So the recorded one is what is done and put on record or kept for students to access later, which we call it asynchronous what? Tutorial. But when we talk about the interactive recorded of the online tutorial, we are looking at the live session of the online teaching that is being put on record or that has been recorded as the learning, as the teaching is going live. So we can do the online tutorial in two forms: the recorded type without the presence of the student, later the student can access it, or you do it live while the students are live or they are participating and you are doing the recording. So we can match it to synchronous and asynchronous tutorials. Okay, let's move on. So when you talk about recorded tutorial, we are saying that it's a video or a screencast recording, typically of subject experts, presenting information and ideas or giving a demonstration. Whilst we talk about interactive tutorials, they are structured collection of navigable web pages. Individual pages can contain any combination of text, images, videos, audios, and so on in order to interact with them. So both can also be used as online tutorials. So the question here is, what is an effective online tutorial? We are saying that it's a tutorial supplement learning, providing further opportunities for students to discuss course material, ask questions, practice skills, and receive formative feedback on their learning. So when we talk about effect, the underlying word is effective, because it's not all online tutorials that are effective. So if you want the online to be effective, which must be in the form of tutorial, we are saying that it's a supplement. So a supplement means added to the material you have, in order to discuss the material that you have, ask questions among your peers, teacher question, teacher people question, people questions, in order to be able to what? Get a concept. Then practice skills, receive formative feedback, receive answers, give them feedback to be able to know your wrongs and the corrects. That's what we call what? Effective online tutorial. Everybody's participating. Let's continue. So when we talk about effective online tutorial, we are saying that tutorial supplement learning that has occurred in lecture by providing further opportunities for students to discuss course material and so on. So a good tutorial is interactive and it is learner centered. A good tutorial is interactive and it is learner centered. It emphasizes active learning and fosters instructor to learner and learner to learner interaction. Online tutorials can be offered in different modalities, different forms. As I said it earlier, synchronous, asynchronous, or combination of the two will do. So later I'll look at what asynchronous and synchronous is, because I've explained earlier, but nevertheless, emphasizing it will give us a better understanding. Let's move on. Factors to consider in online tutorials. Factors to consider. One, planning. When you are planning, you should consider one, intended learning outcomes. ILOS. Intended learning outcomes. What is it? It is possible to meet your intended learning outcomes in the online space and then adapt them if necessary. Focus on the key outcomes. Go straight to the point. That's what you're planning. You must focus on the intended learning outcomes. The second one is scheduling. Here we are looking at scheduling in synchronous way and asynchronous way. When we talk about synchronous way, we are saying that if these sessions are not scheduled, coordinate with all other instructors who are running synchronous sessions to avoid scheduling conflicts. So ask students to fill out a survey, indicate their potential scheduling conflict, include the time zones. We don't want any confusion, any conflict. Maybe whilst you are meeting them, another lecturer is also trying to meet them. So you give them a form to fill, when and how to be available, which modality do they want it to be. You make sure you schedule it so that it prevents any conflict or crash. If it's asynchronous, how do you do? Provide students with a clear schedule for them when the various parts of the synchronous activities are due. Then you will respond to their questions and feedback. So you will do the recording, you paste it online, then you let them be aware when they'll be available, or when they will be available, they'll let you also be aware. Then you also give them the time they should bring in their questions so that you can assess it and answer them or give them the feedback. So when you are scheduling, you look at it in a synchronous way and asynchronous way. And I said synchronous way is so that it doesn't crash with any of the lecturers or teaching. Asynchronous way is you record it and place it there so that you let the children, the learners be aware to bring their questions within a specific time when they are free. Then you can also address or give them the feedback based on their questions. Then we have what we call guidelines. Be proactive and make instructions as clear as possible so students can be as independent as possible. Provide an outline for each session and explain how students will participate in it. Give them guidelines, how they will use the online, how they will use these gadgets, how they will use these technologies. Give them guidelines so that nobody will be a newbie. Nobody will be a newbie on the system. Because immediately one or two are newbie, it means your lesson has not been well delivered. So guide them. Guide them. The next one is technology and material. Use what technology makes sense in the context and nothing more. Simplicity is the key. Do not try to learn new technologies on the fly. It's not this play that you'll be learning new technologies. There's a new app that has come. No. Use the technology that are used by everybody, common to everybody, easy to download, easy to manipulate. When you're able to do this, you are helping the children to make a better out of what they are doing. Don't forget, they'll be digital literate. Make sure in your planning, step you take, make you the student aware of the materials and the technology requirements of your tutorial. So when you are planning, consider these 5 or 4 things I've outlined: intended learning outcomes, your scheduling, no crashing, your guidelines, and the technology and the materials you use. Then we go to number 2, which is our communication. Communication. You know, communication is key. So the first one is communication strategy. Some of the strategy you can use to deliver your lesson. You must ask these questions. How will you interact with the students online? What tools and technology will you use? Are those tools and technology supporting your learning goals? These are factors you must consider. By explicit boards or by explicit, the guidelines for participation, norms and chat, discussions board, virtual meetings, breakout room, timing of all these things, be sure either mode allow opportunities for understanding, checks and feedback. You make sure that all these are problem free in order to communicate effectively. So these are the strategies you must adopt. You must adopt. Then move straight to tone and professionalism. Strive to model the right tone for students, whether oral, whether audio, whether video. In fact, the way you chat, the way you discuss things on board, your tonation, you must do it professionally. You must do it professionally. Be sure to model the engagement, curiosity, respect, and motivation, and so on. Check in to make sure your responses were helpful. Ask clarify questions when needed to help students ask clear and useful questions. But in synchronous session, the delivery mode involves some form of live and chat. But for asynchronous, remember to be clear and concise. If you are doing synchronous, your tonation, you have to be very careful about when you are doing asynchronous. Your tonation should be clear because they are not there to get the feedback. But for the synchronous, they are there, they are live, they are listening. So you have to, your tone and your professionalism must be considered. The next one is align tutorials with the lectures or the lectures. Depending on the online, tutorials might allow or follow an audio, follow a series of short videos, slides, and so on and so forth. Ensure that you are aligning your tutorials with your lectures. Whether demonstrating, expanding, or discussing concepts in depth, follow up on tutorials explained in the lectures so that you don't confuse the learners. Solve examples problem, introduce advanced and more challenging problems in a scaffolded way, in a step-by-step way, and seek to prepare students for assessment. So you have to align tutorials with the lecture. You have to do that. Then the next one is delivery. You check your timing, as I've said it earlier. You check your timing, you check your mood. When you go to the 4th one, which is question, prepare enough assessment, diagnostic assessment, formative assessment, summative assessment. You prepare all those things down. The tools, the mode, the what you do, the quizzes, the presentations, the tests, whatever. So that everybody will participate. If it's asynchronous, you know. If it's synchronous, you must know. Then the activities, participation, live discussion. Allow the learners to battle on a given topic, to bring their point on view, to jaw and jaw, but they shouldn't fight. Break every barriers. Some will say that, oh, due to the network and this and this. No, explain to them that it is important. They should be available. So if all these things are involved, I'm sure the online tutorial will be a better room than the normal traditional classroom teaching. So at this juncture, I'll still call my brother who handed over to me, Simon, to continue from this point. Thank you very much.
Alright, so I'm presenting on e-portfolio. This is Danso John. I'm continuing. I'm through with the learner-centered assessment, and the next one I'm presenting on is e-portfolio. Now, when you talk about e-portfolio, what is it? The E here means an electronic portfolio. An electronic portfolio. Let's go on. So, what is an e-portfolio? E-portfolio is an academic portfolio that contains a digital collection created by students of their course-related work, like essays, videos, artwork. Academic portfolios can also capture other aspects of students' life. So the e-portfolio here takes all the academic achievements of the learner. So it could be an essay, video, artwork, testimonial, certificates, CVs, etc. So this one is a digital collection created by a student of their course related. So this one is created by the student, not the teacher. This portfolio is created by the teacher, which contains academic achievements of the students. So the learning theory behind e-portfolio, according to Baskin 2008, e-portfolios are ways to generate learning as well as document learning. So as I indicated earlier, so the student is in charge of documenting his or her own learning. So the first one we have here is construct knowledge, make learning visible, and foster students' agency. Types of e-portfolios. We have assessment portfolio. Assessment portfolio. So this one talks about the academic achievement of the learner. Assessment portfolio, learning portfolio. So this one talks about the learning materials. Students will create a digital collection of the learning portfolio, and the last one here is career or transfer portfolios. It also takes the achievements or the academic certificates of the learner. Now let's look at the benefits, the importance of e-portfolio to students, not the teacher, to students. One, e-portfolios can help learner develop new, deeper learning. It helps the learner to learn at their own pace. It will help them think critically. Also help them to get critical thinking abilities and critical thinking skills in order to solve problems that will come his or her way. Two, e-portfolios can be shared with friends and family members. So with this one, after creating it, you can share with friends and family members for them to look at your achievements, or in other words, your academic achievements. So you can create an e-portfolio, you can share it among friends, family, for them to look at your achievements, what you've been able to attain so far. Now the last one I'm adding here is you can also share with employers. You can share your e-portfolio with employers when you are applying for a job. Instead of you sending all documents, all printed documents there, you can equally share your e-portfolio with employees for them to look at your achievement, your CV, your certificate, what you were able to achieve when you were in school, and other related things. So this brings me to the end of the entire presentation, and I am Danso John. I presented on learner-centered assessments and e-portfolio. Thank you very much.